Okay. Okay. Hi, I'm Jeff with Clearwater Plumbers.
And I'm Brian with Clearwater Plumbers.
We're talking about the 8 things every homeowner should know about their water. Brian's our water expert here, and right now we're running through bacteria. We'll talk about bacteria in your water system. And Brian, where do we find bacteria in the water system? Is it well water, city water, co-op water, lake water?
Bacteria is going to be found in from what we would call ground level sources. When we're pulling water from a reservoir, something that's at the surface water. In other words, this is where bacteria is going to grow abundantly. And so like in a city system, for example, when they remove that water from the lake or from that reservoir, they'll put it through a treatment center. They're going to be using chlorine, free-floating chloramines, ozone, things like that to kill all that bacteria off before it gets down the line to you. So normally speaking, on a city system, you don't deal with a lot of bacteria only because it's been treated for that. We're dealing with, like we talked about earlier, chlorine there. So the other place where we'll see bacteria is in well systems, and where it can grow is in the casings of the well. It can grow in, there's actually a type of iron-esque bacteria that will grow in hard water systems. And then also we see some bacteria strains that grow in hot water conditions or in a water heater.
Right. And so I think Tarrant Health Department has a recommendation on testing water. Do you know how often they say to test your well?
Annually. Once a year is what they recommend.
So they say test it for bacteria. Now there's certain ways to treat that, and obviously the bacteria we can test for that and help them test with that. UV, can you tell me about that? Is there a UV?
So on the test kit, real quick, we don't actually have an in-the-field test kit for bacteria, but we do have ways to take water, send it off to labs, and actually have it tested and get those results back, and they're very reliable. That's the best way to test for that. Now, as far as getting...
And if the homeowner wants to test it, they can test it too.
Right.
It's so we're happy to, a lot of homeowners, I'd say, there's steps you need to take to test the water correctly and make sure you're taking a disinfected sample that's not picking up bacteria from the spout.
Right.
So you have to think about some things when you test it, and that's why sometimes it's good to have us do it. But the homeowner can definitely test their water annually without us or without a water treatment company. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're concerned about it or finding problems, we can help you solve those problems. Go ahead, UV.
If we've got bacteria coming through the system, in a well system, we don't want to necessarily add chlorine to the system like the city does. That's for a larger scale situation. But we can use a UV light, and these will work up for upwards of like 12 gallons per minute going through. So at a very fast rate that it will actually kill everything in that water. And UV sterilization is very, very effective. It can.
I think it's 99.9 is what they'll list on the manufacturer's UV lights.
Yes.
And also, and shooting from the hip here, I'd say on some of these RO systems, that final RO membrane actually filters down past the size of...
So this guy right here is going to pull out any type of bacteria, protozoan, you name it. If it's a living organism in the water, it cannot pass.
So it's the filter smaller than the size of the bacteria.
Right. So on actual physical treatment options, that's not a process, but something that actually in your house, a UV filter, a UV light sterilizer, if you will, is one way. A reverse osmosis system is another way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I think in a nice setup, it would be if you had a well system, might be nice to have a UV if you're concerned about bacteria, a UV light. and then an RO system on your drinking water.
I recommend an RO system on, be it a city system or a well system.
Any drinking water system. Okay.
Exactly. Look at bottled water, for example.
And so on bacteria, there's a couple different bacterias, right? So, and tell me if I'm wrong, but on the city health test, like Tarrant Health Department, what they test is for bacteria, and they'll test for coliform, E. coli coliform bacteria. Is that right?
Right.
So some bacteria won't necessarily make you sick.
Right.
And then there's the one that they're testing for is the E. coli that I think is the bigger concern.
So you've got bacteria that's going to do things like make your water stink, or grow. It'll grow certain things like inside of a toilet tank, for example. But these are not bacteria that will necessarily make you sick. Whereas E. coli and things like that, those are going to be the bacteria that are very, very harmful.
Got it. Okay, cool. So anyway, bacteria questions. Some of these there's symptoms or smell related things and stuff like that. If you have any questions, need further info, holler. There's a lot of
call
info.
And we can take a look.
Yep.
Got to do what you ought to, clear water.